Hi, my name's Tom, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the Real Frank Zappa book by Frank Zappa. Now, as is probably obvious from the title, this is Frank Zappa's autobiography. I have read two biographies of his before, the Electric Don Quixote and just Frank Zappa, which is by Barry Miles, both of which I really enjoyed, but this book is the only book written by Frank himself. The way it came about, apparently it's him and a chap called Peter Occhiogrosso. I'm terribly sorry for my awful pronunciation. It came out of a series of discussions or conversations that they both had, and Peter recorded these, notated them, sent them to Frank, who made corrections and sent them back, and that's how the book came about. Unlike the other two biographies I've read, again, it's just called Frank Zappa and Electric Don Quixote, which are great. You should check these out anyway. It's a lot less academic, I would use that word, and a lot less concerned with the minutiae details of Frank's life. The first two I've used fairly extensively at university when I was doing, I did a few essays on Frank Zappa. And they were really useful for that. This one is more lighthearted, a lot more lighthearted. Obviously, if you're a fan of Frank, then you know he's got a tremendous sense of humour, and sort of follows that vein. So I would say that this book is really for anyone who's looking for, who's a fan of Frank's. I mean, obviously that should be obvious, but is just looking for an interesting book about him that's not too heavy. Like I said before, these two books are fairly thick, with small print, and this one is, despite being a larger size in general, it's fairly thin in comparison, and the text is pretty large, and it's got a few illustrations in there. So yeah, if you're a fan of Frank's, this is probably aimed at you. Personally, I've been trying to get hold of this book for a while. I'm in the UK, obviously, and but for some reason I've struggled to find this on Amazon. It's been on Amazon, but it's been out of stock for ages. So I was very excited when Santa brought that down the chimney on December 25th. I started reading it the day after Christmas and pretty much finished it in 3 days. It's incredibly readable. At no point does it feel too wordy or too full on, and typical to Frank's sense of humour, it's funny throughout. I was quite excited because, unlike following normal biography format, it doesn't just start with Frank Zappa was born X and end with Frank Zappa died, blah blah blah. Obviously Frank wrote this while he was still alive, so he was able to give his opinions on topics that he's often brought up in discussion with. So there's a section about his life at the start. He talks about growing up and being ill most of the time, all stories that you may have heard before. So if you are a Frank Zappa fan who again has read a couple of other biographies, or maybe has read some articles or interviews, there's still a lot of value to hear all these things, or read all these things rather, coming from the man himself, because he puts a humorous twist on everything. He talks about his music in general in a very technical sense. As a musician and composer, I'm really excited by that, hearing him talk about the minutiae of his work, and also his business ethic, which is incredibly interesting to me, the way he treats the band as employees and everything like that. Goes through all of that, all of his policies, and goes through his opinion on drugs, on tobacco, on the PMRC, on religion in general. It's incredibly interesting and covers a lot of different aspects of his life. So if there is a section that you're not particularly gripped by, a few pages later there's another topic that'll hopefully keep you going. The highlight for me was the when he's talking about composition, when he's talking about his work with the synclavier and things like that, because I'm a bit of a music nerd. I like to read about composers' composition process, so hearing about that was really exciting. And in specific terms, when he's talking about having his work performed by an orchestra, which is very exciting and very interesting, hearing the sort of rigmarole he had to go through for that. So value-wise, I can't say how much this book cost because it was a gift. Obviously, you'd have to write to Santa for that information. But I can't imagine it'd be more than £20, and that is certainly a sensible price point for this. It's incredibly readable, and if you're a fan of Frank's, I would suggest it. Obviously, if you're paying silly amounts of money, then it's probably not going to be worth it to you. But if you are a fan and you haven't checked this out, I would definitely suggest it. It was a fantastic read. I can't attest again for the accuracy of the stuff in the book. In the first few chapters of Electric Don Quixote, some of the sort of quotes from this book, the Real Frank Zappa book, are sort of mentioned and then corrected, because apparently, or according to that biographer, who again, I think that's Neil Slavin, yeah, that's right, some of the things that Frank mentions as fact in his autobiography, the book I'm reviewing now, are sort of maybe a bit spurious or inaccurate, but I wasn't reading it for an academic purposes. It was purely for fun, and it is a great read, so I would recommend it to any Frank Zappa fan who hasn't picked it up yet. Thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this review, then please like and subscribe. I've got more reviews on the way, and plenty more guitar playing videos as well, if this kind of stuff isn't your thing. I'll see you soon.